kick things off with that by getting your reaction to Man City's 2-1 victory over Aston Villa in the Premier League on Tuesday night. A huge win for Pep Guardiola's side in the race for top five finish and to secure Champions League football for next season. After leaving it late to get the better of Everton by 2-0 scoreline at the weekend, they left it late again to beat Aston Villa with Matheus Nunes scoring his first Premier League goal for City in the 94th minute to win it at the Etihad. It really was a massive win for City, wasn't it? What did you make of the performance, Stephen, and the result overall and what it means for Man City?
Yeah, absolutely huge. It's sort of a very momentum building result. City were already in decent form anyway, and I think they've definitely found themselves recently compared to the terrible winter months. But this was the sort of performance that rubber stamped City, not being fully back, but you can tell they are who they are again. Guardiola's got his players back, and the pride's come back into the team. And it's been a season full of the opposite, where City have had crushing blows late on, where we've been on the receiving end of so much pain, which is probably what we needed, given we've been doing it to everyone else for the past 10 years. But City have had some of their own medicine, and it's been painful to have those late capitulations and so on. But to City to do it again, I mean, I think you get a little bit numb as a City fan to how good it feels because you've seen it so many times over the years. Villa, of course, famously a few years back to win the league. That it's become part of City's identity to do these late comebacks and just relentlessly force teams into mistakes and get the winner towards the end. And it hasn't been much of that this season. So it just felt, it felt cathartic. And you can see from the players, the reaction from Guardiola, they knew just how big this result was and what it will mean, of course, for the rest of the season. We've still plenty to play for beyond Champions League qualification, of course, too. Yeah, it felt nice. It felt like seeing the resilience return. It felt like City knowing they can win a game, they can grind it out against very good sides. And of course, Aston Villa are a great side. Yeah, it was just fantastic. And much needed shot in the arm for City towards the end of the season.
Yeah, and that Nunes goal was timed at 93 minutes 21 seconds, so
Oh,
just
so
one
close.
short of that iconic Sergio Aguero goal against QPR. And how pleased were you that for Matheus Nunes to produce that match-winning moment in such an important game? How big of a boost is it for him?
Yeah, delighted for him. Honestly, I've been a little bit critical of Nunes myself. I've felt his focus is like down a little bit, and of course, maybe he was a little bit culpable for the goal as well. We gave the ball away a little bit sloppily. But one thing I can't deny is that he's willing. He works really hard. He takes his chances when he gets them to the best of his ability, and he's been used in various roles other than his preferred one. In central midfield, left winger this season, right winger a little bit. He's done a bit of left back, a bit of right back. He's been everywhere apart from the place he'd want to play. But there's been no complaints. He's worked really hard and he's shown a willingness to learn and adapt to whatever the team wants from him. And look, you might not be prime Kevin De Bruyne, but he's clearly a very talented footballer. Clearly works really hard. Clearly wants to succeed. Um, and I think these moments can be great for players. They can be great for their confidence, for their development. And he's not incredibly young or anything like that. But he is, only about 26. He's got time to improve and get better. Look, Fernandinho joined Man City at 28 years old. I'm not saying he reached those levels, but you never know how far a player can go. And I think a moment like last night is a big moment for his personal Manchester City career. There'll be a stronger bond with the fan base. He'll feed his confidence. Guardiola will know he can be there for a big moment like that, and he shows great, character. To have that moment and to be there and be willing to put yourself in that situation after a mistake early on in the game. So yeah, I was delighted for him because he seems by all accounts a very likable player, hardworking one who wants to be here, and he got his just rewards for his own bravery in the face of a little bit of criticism here and there, or even Guardiola coming out and saying recently, which sounded quite brutal out of context, saying he's not smart enough for midfield, which Guardiola doesn't mean he's not saying he doesn't know the capital of London. He means positional sense and all that kind of stuff. But that could have knocked his confidence. Yeah, he's still showing up and getting that moment. And he's becoming a pretty good right back. I've got to give him credit where it's due, Look, there's the odd frailty here and there, but look, that's a right back. It's a Premier League level right back against one of the best teams in Europe, and he more than did himself proud and got the winner. So fair play. Yeah, I'm happy for him.
Yeah, and that Nunes goal was set up brilliantly by Jeremy Doku, who's impressed in recent games off the bench. Guardiola said after that win over Villa that Doku's the best player in the world in the first 5 meters, of course, referring to that electric acceleration that he's got, which is on show in the build-up to setting up Nunes' goal. Do
Yeah.
you think now that Doku's a player that's pushing for a start in these upcoming games?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, ultimately, I think Guardiola's just happy to have him. A slight aside from that, I love Jeremy Doku. I feel like it's worth being mentioned just how refreshing he is as a footballer. I have no idea how good Jeremy Doku will be one day. He might stay the same. He might end up being much better. But I think the fact that Jeremy Doku exists is a blessing to football. We're in an era where players run and they're organised and it's all about risk mitigation, and everyone's encouraged to keep the ball and so on. And Jeremy Doku is just that kid in the playground who just wants to beat people, but he does it at an elite level. And I just love him. So I want to get that out there. I think Doku is so relentlessly impressive and fearless, and there's a self-reflexive side to him as well where he wants to improve. And I love it when he has moments last night because I think Doku is unashamedly unique. You can't be categorized, and I think Guardiola, you can't hold that back. Those impacts that he's had, they're crucial. And I'm a sort of a believer as well that everyone wants to start and play, but you can more than affect the future of a side and write yourself into folklore off the bench. Like Gundogan famously against Aston Villa a few years back. People forget he was on the bench. Like he came on and he was he wrote himself into history from Manchester City with those late goals and the winner. And I think Doku, look, I don't know if you've reached that level, but it's not the only way to affect the team. And he's still learning lessons. He's still improving, even with these cameos and so on. And I'm sure he'll start some more games towards the end of the season. I don't think he's done anything wrong as such. I don't think Guardiola doesn't want to play him. He just wants to play in a different way, and that's what Guardiola's currently doing. Given the fact that we've got so many big games, Guardiola is clearly reverting to the conservative approach where he wants to keep the ball, keep the ball, and keep the ball, and work teams and tire them out because that's how he prefers to play. And Doku and Savinho aren't really that. They are more aggressive, more assertive. And I don't think it's necessarily a reflection of their talent. It's just more a different approach. But what I do know is that when you do play this way, when you do keep the ball and tire teams down and have 10,000 million passes, which is a Guardiola thing, there's no one really better, not many people better in world football full stop than Jeremy Doku to bring on towards the end to change the tempo so dramatically. And I think and hope, people in football realize his unique talents and, hope City fans do as well. And I think they do because as much as people talk about, his end product and so on, he's clearly getting better. He's a better player than he was when he first joined, in my opinion. And he's not even played in a peak Manchester City side yet, a side where everyone's got the energy, to get around and move and make themselves available for passes and all that kind of stuff. So I think he's done himself no harm for getting some starts towards the end of the season, maybe in the Club World Cup too. I think he's a cracking footballer, incredibly unique footballer. I've never seen a dribble as aggressive as Doku in my life. I'm 39 years old, and I've never seen anyone dribble like Doku. Might not be the world's best dribbler, maybe that would be Messi, but the most aggressive and the most consistent, probably, yeah. Like the guy attempts 15 dribbles and does about 13 of them. It's ridiculous. And yeah, what a fantastic and exciting player. And I'm glad that he's getting his plaudits because 2 games now, I would argue that he's turned in City's favour, and that will probably get us. That's probably the difference of tens of millions of pounds for Manchester City, given Champions League qualification. So yeah, I'm happy for him. Delightful footballer.
Yeah, great to see his impact in these recent games. And for City now, in terms of the race for a top five finish, City now sit third in the table, 4 points ahead of Chelsea and sixth, who have a game in hand. And how confident are you, Stephen, and how confident should Man City be now of qualifying for the Champions League?
Yeah, I'm very confident, if I'm being honest. We were chatting a bit beforehand about the City's chances, and I look at the fixtures right now. I know Wolves have won a bunch of games recently, but they've won games against those around him. I'll always take great joy in saying this against teams like Man United. Nothing sides. They've got nothing going for them. But then it's also Southampton, Ipswich, West Ham, and Spurs. They're all literally the bottom 6, 7 teams, and the Wolves have done well to beat them. But I expect at home on a Friday night at the Etihad, I think City would have too much against Wolves. I think that'll be a home banker. Southampton away, come on, City should be winning that if they got any serious aspirations to do anything. Bournemouth at home, Bournemouth are a good side, but at home, I would argue Bournemouth aren't quite the same side as Villa, and given that we found a way to beat them recently as well in the FA Cup, and then Fulham away, we need to look. I'm expecting 3 wins out of those last 4 at least, and maybe a draw. We might slip up, but the resilience is clearly returning, and we put some daylight between us now and the teams in sixth place. There's 4 points gap now between us and between us and Villa at least. Chelsea, of course, have got a game in hand, but I think Newcastle and Forest. Some of the teams have got to play each other. I can't remember who it is,
Yeah, they
but
have.
Yeah, and I know I
Yeah.
think it might be Newcastle and Chelsea, maybe. I think it might be, or is it
Yeah.
Newcastle Forest?
Chelsea got to play Forest on the final day, and Newcastle got to play Chelsea. So yeah,
Yeah,
couple
I
of
mean they're
games.
going to take points off each other, and City have got reasonably. It's a couple of home bankers you would think there. Bournemouth, their Champions League race is over. They're down in eighth right now. Fulham, yeah, once again, if Fulham have got like maybe Conference League to play for potentially or Europa League. I don't think they'll get Europa League. Is it conferences? Where? What positions
I
is it? Is it
think I
eight?
think as things stand, it's top eight, but I think it might depend on who wins
The
the FA
Europa.
Cup, and people might drop down. Yeah.
Yeah. So Fulham maybe got something to play for that, but I'm expecting City still will have enough. And given they found that way to play again, and I think the confidence returning, I think City are going to be fine here. Like this was the game for me. I just wanted to avoid defeat, but the win, it's giving us breathing space, and yeah, I'm pretty confident that City should do it now.